Okay, I'd like to welcome you to this presentation on preparing for your dissertation. My name is Dr. Kristen L. Wigginton. I'm an associate professor in the Department of Health Studies at Texas Women's University. We're going to be discussing today the process that's involved when it comes time for your dissertation, all the way from prospectus to your actual dissertation defense, and important points that you need to consider when working on your timeline with your chair. The first thing that you'll be working on when it comes time for your first semester of dissertation is your prospectus timeline. When you get with your chair, when you decide who you would like to have as your chair, you'll request for them to chair your committee. You can do that via email or contact them by phone. And once you've done that, then you'll want to sit down with the chair and discuss your timeline based on if you have any classes left when you're deciding to do comps, the comprehensive exams. You may decide to do prospectus in the same semester as comps, or you may want to wait until the next semester. But it's important that you sit down with your chair or discuss with them by phone the timeline so that you're both well aware of when you're planning to begin your dissertation. On the prospectus, you're going to be working with the chair all the way from your hypotheses, what your variables are going to be, what your research questions are if it's a qualitative study, and of course your methodology and your proposed data analysis. So all of these are the things that you'll need to consider when you're typing up the prospectus, when you're looking at what type of study design you want to do. So make sure that you are in good contact with your chair, because the chair is there to help you when it comes time to kind of craft the study design that you want to do. When it comes to the actual drafting of the prospectus, it's important to understand that you'll need to do at least 2 edits. And that's because even the best of writers miss things, especially on the prospectus when it's your first paper about your study. It's just important that you understand that the chair will need at least 2 edits to make sure that everything's good to go. On that 3rd edit then, if there's no further edits required, then you'll schedule the defense date for your prospectus and you'll send your prospectus to the committee. Now you'll want to allow 2 weeks for review, and that's required, and you'll also send a draft to the department chair. At the end of that 2 weeks is when you'll have your prospectus defense, and in that you'll give a mini presentation at the beginning of about 15 minutes about your study, but primarily about what got you interested in this line, this particular topic, and what got you interested in studying these particular variables. And then we'll open it up for comments and questions from the dissertation committee. And at the end of that, then you'll be told whether your study is approved to begin. Also during this time, you'll want to be working with your chair on the IRB application. The IRB stands for the Institutional Review Board. And this committee basically reviews all studies done by dissertation students, thesis students, and also faculty, and approves them from a human participants protection standpoint. So when you're working on your prospectus, you'll also want to be working on your IRB application for TWU. There are 3 different levels of IRB studies, how you're reviewed. Your study may either be exempt, expedited, or full. An exempt study is the easiest to get through because it's the lowest level of human participant protection. There's no sensitive data collection, there's no blood draws, there's no extensive interviews. These are basic surveys that are not intrusive. That only requires review by 1 committee member, and usually this review can come back within a couple of weeks. An expedited is a little bit more involved and requires 2 to 3 members to review, and may take up to a month or so for you to receive committee approval, IRB approval. The longest is the full. Full IRB approval requires the full committee to meet, and they only meet once a month. So if you're doing primary data collection in your study and it involves some sensitive data, it's important for you to understand that your full review may take a while, and you may not get approval on the first review. So it may take 2 or 3 different submissions of the application itself, and then extra material that may be requested from the IRB committee. Once you get that IRB approval, you'll attach that letter to your prospectus You'll send it to the grad school, or your chair will send it to the grad school, and then you will receive a letter from the graduate school informing you that your study has been approved by the Graduate School of Texas Women's University, and that date is when you can begin data collection. On your dissertation timeline, one of the things that you can work with your chair on, even before you start collecting data, is your first 3 chapters. Pretty much when you're done with your prospectus, you've almost completed your chapters 1 and your chapters 3. There's only a few things that might need to be added to chapters 1 and chapter 3 once you get to that point for the dissertation. Really, the only chapter out of those 3 that needs to be extended on from the prospectus is chapter 2, which is your literature review. So you'll want to work ahead on those things. That's why when I said earlier, if you're working in a class on a paper that's where you can actually choose a topic that's in line with what you want to do your dissertation study on, you might want to do that topic so that when it comes time for your literature review, you already have all these papers, all these articles that you've read and are ready to go. Because I usually require my students to write at least 25 pages for the literature review, which is chapter 2. So once you get those first 3 chapters done, you'll need to do at least 2 edits with your chair. And on that 3rd edit then, if there are no further edits required, then you can put those chapters aside and know that you're done with them, and go on then to your data collection and analysis and your interpretation of the results for chapters 4 and 5. Once you get your chapters 4 and 5 drafts ready to go, and you may decide with your chair to work on each of those chapters separately. You might get chapter 4 done and go ahead and send that to your chair, and then do the same for chapter 5. But it's still important to understand that your chair will need at a maximum 2 weeks to review each of those. So when you're doing the timeline, work those 2 weeks in to the review period. On the 3rd draft then, if there are no more edits required, you'll schedule the defense with your chair, and then you'll send an email to your other committee members requesting that they attend on a particular date. And then you'll allow 2 weeks for a review, and a draft will also be sent to the department chair. And then you'll have your dissertation defense. The dissertation defense begins with you giving a 25 to 30 minute presentation about your study. And that can actually be an open presentation where people from outside the department can come in to watch. And then once the presentation is over, they'll be asked to leave, and that's when we'll actually do the defense portion, where you'll be asked questions, pointed questions about your results, about your analyses, your interpretation of the data, the variables, what you see as the importance of the study, especially in regards to health education. So that's the majority of the defense. Once that is completed, then you will be asked to leave the room, and the committee will discuss the defense, the study itself, and then you'll be asked to come in and be told whether you've passed the process or not. So the timeline, when you're looking at prospectus, understand that there's at least 8 weeks of editing time at a minimum. For chapters 1 through 3, 6 weeks minimum. 4 and 5, 6 weeks minimum. And then committee review, 2 weeks for each, for the prospectus and then also the dissertation. So total editing time at minimum is 14 weeks on the dissertation portion itself. That's why it's important to understand that that you start chapters 1 through 3 in and around the time of finishing prospectus, so that that final semester you can be primarily focused on chapters 4 and 5. Editing time does not include time spent by student on drafts of prospectus and chapters. So if something happens in your life and it takes you an extra month to get a draft back to your chair, understand that that doesn't change the 2-week editing time for the chair. So we understand that things come up in life, and that it may delay your process, and it may even delay your dissertation an extra semester. Just contact your chair so that she or he can work with you on reframing your timeline due to the events that came up that maybe pushed it off. As this will be one of the most meaningful studies and times of your life, select a research topic for which you have a passion. You're going to spend an inordinate amount of time on this one focal area, so choose wisely. It's very important for you to choose a topic that you have a passion for, that you maybe have some personal interest in, some personal experience with, so that you become more interested in the topic as you move along. Understand that most dissertation studies take at least 3 semesters, from start of prospectus to IRB, to data collection analysis, to dissertation drafting and editing, to the defense. So this is crucial because I've had students come to me that expect to finish in 2 semesters, and I have to sit them down and explain to them that 3 semesters is reasonable, especially if you're considering doing a primary data collection type of study. So when you're looking at your timeline, when you're completing comps, look on there and know that it's going to be 3 semesters beyond that, especially including comps, but there's going to be 3 semesters there for the dissertation process. Your dissertation chair is there to guide you on design, interpretation of findings, and discussion. She or he is not an editor. The 2-week editing period is for content only. Thus, if there are multiple writing errors, don't be surprised when the dissertation is sent right back with a try again at the top. I've had this happen in the past, and that's why I added this on here. If I get through the first paragraph or even in the second paragraph and I see multiple basic grammatical errors, basic spelling errors, writing errors, I'm going to shut it down and send it right back. And I'll be honest, I'll be a little disgusted when I do so, because what I'll believe at the time is that I've spent more time on the paper than you did because I actually caught errors that you didn't. So, and I'm not alone in thinking this. So just when you're working on your dissertation chapters, your prospectus, your dissertation chapters, take pride in your work. If you don't feel comfortable in your writing by that point, then it's important for you to get with an editor. If you have a good friend or family member that's a great writer, then you may want to use them as someone to give feedback on your drafts. But don't expect your chair to be the editor for you for grammatical and basic writing errors. That concludes this presentation on preparation of your dissertation.